Good now? Okay, cool. All right, so let's get started. So everybody wants to take a seat. So I just want to, this is your friendly reminder, and make sure at the end you fill out your feedback forms because they're actually really helpful for us to know what you liked, what you didn't like. You're never shy about telling us what you don't like, so we're not really afraid of that. But just in general, it's good to get feedback. Dan Crowley is going to talk to you now about SQL injection and actually advanced SQL injection, which is cool because usually we see like the basic high-level talk, so I'm kind of curious to see how deep you take this here.
So more specifically, I'm going to be talking about my tool called SQLol. So SQLol is a, well, we'll get into it, but I promise you that if you're like, well, this is a SQL injection talk, but I guess I'll go. I think you'll get something worth your time. So first, who am I? I'm Daniel Crowley. I work in the Spiderlabs division of Trustwave in the application security department. If you want to berate me on Twitter, that's my Twitter. If you want to email me and berate me otherwise, you can do so there. So what is SQLol? SQLol is a configurable SQL injection testbed. The idea of SQLol is that the way that SQLol is built, it's useful for research. So if you're developing new SQL injection exploitation techniques, SQLol is really useful. If you're teaching people to do basic or advanced SQL injection, SQLol is useful. And I'll teach you guys some stuff that I've learned after creating SQLol that I think is pretty fascinating. And also for testing. So if you've never used some particular SQL injection tool or technique, and you want to try it out and not do it on client billable time or on client production systems or something like that, you can do so. If you have some sort of real-world SQL injection scenario that's potentially dangerous, like if you're working with a delete query, for instance, you don't really want to be learning what to do on a client system, so SQLol can help you with that. If you have a vulnerability scanner or an exploitation tool, and you're not sure if it works with some particular manifestation of SQL injection, you can try it out and see if it works. So there's a bunch of different uses for this, and you can get it at the Spiderlabs GitHub listed below. So why? Why make another vulnerability testbed? And why just SQL injection? Well, because existing testbeds are inflexible. You have wonderful tools like DVWA or WebGoat, but you only have one SQL injection flaw, or maybe one informed and one blind SQL injection flaw. And it's always in a select query, and you're always injecting into a string in the where clause. This is not a representation of all the SQL injection flaws that are possible or that you see. In fact, rarely do you get anything as nice as what you find in something like a DVWA. So it's simplified. It's overly simplified. It's not close enough to real world for me. Real world scenarios are varied and bizarre and sometimes dangerous. I was told a story about some other consulting firm that inadvertently passed business on to Spiderlabs because they made the mistake of using single quote or 1=1 comment to test for SQL injection flaws in a website. And they ended up trying this and succeeding on a delete query. Now, if you nullify the where clause on a delete query, the entire table is gone. Ouch. So, better to do that in a test environment than on production systems. And SQLol this is one of the things that SQLol is geared specifically towards. Now, if this doesn't make sense to you, here's the Klingon version. If you don't speak Klingon, if you're actually from, I don't know, let's say medieval times, here's the Shakespearean version. I humbly posit that the current state, with much respect to work which does proceed, of testbeds made with vulns to demonstrate, is lacking some inflexibility. Two options are presented present day, as far as when one deals with SQL, a blind injection, bool or time delay, and union statement hacks. Oh gee, how swell. Imagine we could choose how queries read, and how our input sanitizes. Oh, how nimble and specific we could be to recreate our exploit scenarios. And thus is SQLol conceived, that we can study how to pwn DBs. I'll be here all night. And if you've not been paying attention this whole time, here's the TLDR version. So let's talk about configuring the flaw. So this is kind of what the interface looks like. It's kind of basic. I didn't spend a lot of time on the user interface. That's probably since it's starting to gain more attention and people are actually starting to use this, which I was a little bit surprised about at first. I'm going to update the UI, but for now it's just really simple. So first you're going to want to choose the type of query. You can choose any of the 4 basic types of queries, or you can actually write your own and specify the injection point. So you have insert, update, delete, select, or a custom one. And then you choose your sanitization options. I'm going to allow for custom sanitization routines soon enough. It's not there yet, but right now you can do sanitization of single quotes, either doubled, backslashed, or removed. You can remove spaces, and you can do like a keyword blacklist and specify your own keyword blacklist. There's several different levels of blacklisting that you can do, which go from like the very stupidest to the best that you can hope to achieve with a blacklist filter, which still isn't very good, but you know, yeah. So verbosity, you can choose how much of the results set to output. You can put out all rows. You can put out one row. You can put out an indication of whether results were returned or not, but no actual result data. And you can also put out no data at all. And you can do something similar with the errors. You can do verbose error messages, generic error messages, or no error messages. If you like, and this I've found is really, really helpful for beginners to SQL injection, those just getting into it, you can choose to show the query. When you show the query, your injection string is actually underlined. So you can see the entire query that's being sent to the database after your injection string is placed in there, post-sanitization. So you can see exactly what hit the database and what part of it was your input after sanitization. So that's lovely. That really helps people to put into context how SQL injection actually is working, or why their particular injection string might be failing during a specific attack. And finally, you can choose the injection location. So instead of just injecting into the where clause in a string, you can choose to inject inside an integer, or you can choose to inject inside a column, or inject inside an order by clause, or inject inside a field name. So all sorts of different stuff. Now, if that wasn't enough, there's a bunch of preset configurations, which I've labeled as challenges. I figured, does anybody here use Photocracy? Nobody wants to own up to it. I know a couple of you actually do. No, okay, the one guy who I know does left the room, so maybe not. All right, fair enough. So Photocracy is a website that basically tries to gamify fitness. So you go on there and you level up with your workouts. So you gain sort of experience points and level up, and it's really, really good at motivating people to go exercise and do something. So I figured, let me do the same thing with SQLol. So there's a bunch of challenges. I'm thinking of trying to put in a way to keep track of them, but for now it's just, do the challenges. So you have a bunch of preset configurations, each with objectives to say, here's, well, for instance, death row requires you to pull back a series of social security numbers from the database in a standard SQL injection scenario where only one row of data is returned. So, basically, that at this point, I want to talk about actually using SQLol. So, if you want, you can use the injection string field here. Another option for you is to use a get parameter.